Kia ora talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to our, let's call it special podcast for this Thursday. This is just going to be on YouTube. We had video issues on Tuesday for our thenichecache podcast, but it is available on audio platform. But today we are doing just a big old chat that will go up on YouTube, and it is in the Thursday slot, which is where we usually record the bonus podcast strictly for the folks on Patreon and those with a paid Substack subscription helping us do what we love to do. So this won't be a bonus podcast. This would just be a regular old chinwag going up on YouTube talking about Aotearoa sport. But I do want to bring in one of our patrons, Connor, who did offer a nice little question here that can get the juices flowing, especially with Blackcaps cricket. Obviously, we're recording this before the start of day 3. And this is why you should join the Patreon whānau or become a paid Substack subscriber, because we might actually read your comment. Otherwise, we're usually offline doing our best living life thingy-majig. But patrons do have a special place in our heart, and Connor has left a note here, changing the focus to red ball. Robinson is more and more looking like a future number 5 batter for the Blackcaps. I do hope by the end of the World Test Championship cycle, at least one opener gets their debut, and Hay is given the gloves. I was hoping a new coach would spice up the squad even just a little bit, but Walters seems a bit more conservative, or the selection panel doesn't trust him yet. There has been a change in the selection panel with Sam Wells stepping aside. Now we've got Gavin Larson doing his best Bob Carter impersonation and just never leaving New Zealand cricket. Gavin Larson did leave New Zealand cricket as the chief selector a few years ago. Then Sam Wells came in, and there was a bit of a change in the vibe, but now Gavin Larson's come back to his job, as Bob Carter always seems to do on the, not even just the women's side, but just all New Zealand cricket duties. So there's two things here. We've got the Robinson as a possible test batter, and we've got now Mitch Hay selected in the Blackcaps squad in place of Tom Blundell, who has injured his hammy. We'll get into Hay in a jiffy, but I was pondering Tim Robinson as a possible all-format batter for the Blackcaps. He's one of our best T20 batters right now, straight up and down. He's had a fantastic start to the domestic summer as well, averaging 69 with in the Ford Trophy and 111 in Plunket Shield. He's one of 3 batters who have scored 200 plus runs in both competitions. The other 2 are Henry Nicholls and Brad Schmullian, but Robinson has a higher strike rate than the other 2 in all 3 in both competitions this season. This does get into the selection stuff and how the Blackcaps operate, but I still think Henry Nicholls is the best batter in domestic cricket right now, and that means something. Unless you're in the White Ferns pipeline and you're Kate Anderson or Caitlin Gurry, being the best batter by a notable margin probably won't lead to White Ferns selections, as I've written in the newsletter today, thenichecache.substack.com. So you can go the Henry Nicholls route at some point if you need to. I think that's a good stopgap measure. But as we've seen with the wicket-keeping situation, they are open to some of these younger players getting more opportunities. We've seen with the ball as well, Zach Folks coming into the test team. And now we've got Mitch Hay, the younger wicket-keeping option, coming into the squad. But Tim Robinson is definitely a factor, and he is one of my favourite deep cuts from domestic cricket this season so far, because he is one of our best T20 batters, but he's not just a T20 batter. He is doing great stuff in the other 2 formats in domestic cricket, and here's a bit of a kind of emerging batter map. As Connor did say, it would be good to see one opener get an opportunity. One of those openers is Reece Mariu, but he's had a slower start to Plunket Shield. But we've got Reece Mariu, Curtis Heafy, and Dale Phillips as the next up openers, in my opinion. The upper order, which is kind of like number 3 or 4, we've got Matt Boyle and Gareth Severin. They're doing all right, but I don't think they're quite at the tier of the other dudes. And that's mainly because the middle order lads, Tim Robinson, Bevan Jacobs, and Mohamed Abbas, can all bat in the upper region as well. So if we're thinking Tim Robinson batting number 5 for the Blackcaps in Test cricket, I think Bevan Jacobs is a factor there as well. And Mohamed Abbas will be a factor in that position moving forward. The dudes with the highest averages of these emerging batters in first-class cricket: Reece Mariu, 56, Curtis Heafy, 44, Bevan Jacobs, 54.8. Robinson's only averaging 33, but he is in the best form of all these dudes. So when you're thinking about the Blackcaps playing Test cricket right now, I would say keep in the back of your minds that there is a lot of emerging batter depth, and Tim Robinson deserves to be part of that emerging batting depth for the Test team as much as another T20 lad that everyone knows from T20 cricket, like Bevan Jacobs. Are either of them as good as Reece Mariu or Curtis Heafy? I don't know. Mohamed Abbas is awesome as well. Like, this is Blackcaps depth at its finest, and we've seen that with the ball right now as well, because we got, remember when the Test squad was announced and it was like, oh, Kyle Jamieson, he's out, you know what, Kyle Jamieson not selected and all this stuff. Well, Matt Henry's a legend, but we've also got Jacob Duffy averaging below 22 in all 3 formats this year, and Zach Folks, he's averaging 9.7 in Tests, 16 in ODIs, 28.8 in T20 internationals. If you're worrying about the Blackcaps who aren't playing, you're missing the whole trick here. You got to worry about the dudes who are getting the opportunity, and to wrap it up, the next dude getting that opportunity will be Mitch Hay, who has a first-class batting average of 49.6.
Yeah, the Tim Robinson at 5 thing, it's an idea I like, but it's not really an idea I see being, like, certainly not in the short term, all that likely. It's there's just not there's not an open spot there, because that's where Daryl Mitchell bats, and Daryl Mitchell's not going anywhere in the next couple of years. But then as you lay out there, it's not like Tim Robinson is front of the queue and there's no one else. There's a big list, and he's not at the top of it yet. But he is playing well, and I do think he's someone who has potential to play Test cricket. Just whether that opportunity opens up anytime soon. I think he's one of those guys who is just going to have to grind away at that for a few more years before that becomes possible.
Just imagine there's a spot up for grabs, because there's not going to be spots up for grabs anytime soon.
Yeah, well,
like but
that's the thing. You imagine it, and like you say, I think Bevan Jacobs is higher up in that queue. I think. Well, what we saw in this game is Will Young got that opportunity, with just sticking with an established guy. I think Tim Robinson, if he wants to be a Test player, he has to score Plunket Shield runs. But I think the other thing that can't be underestimated is he also just needs to continue to embed himself in the other formats for the Blackcaps. Like, the more T20s he plays, the more ODIs especially he plays as well for the Blackcaps. I think that improves his chances of playing for playing Test cricket at some point, as much as the Plunket Shield runs he scores. Like, he has to do both in order for that to be the case, but he can't just only score the Plunket Shield runs. I think for someone like him, he has to also prove himself to be like an important, regular, every squad kind of, picked every time he's available player, in particular in the ODI team, because arguably he's already there in the T20 team. But I think, obviously the ODI is your bridge from T20 to Test cricket. But I think that, I think that's possible. The Mitch Hay, Tom Blundell one, I think, is the fascinating one because what if that's already happened? Like, what if that's, Tom Blundell is, what, 35, 36 years old or something like that. In his last 15 test matches, dating back to the start of 2024, batting average of 22.59, 100, 150 from 24 innings. It's with 3 ducks, so more ducks than he has 50 plus scores in that time. That's just a nice, like, easy spot in the calendar to point at as well. Like, start of 2024, the last 2 years. It goes back a little bit further than that because he didn't score runs in the Bangladesh series before that or the Sri Lanka series before that. The lowest I can find here is his last 19 test matches. He averages 19.21, so that goes back to March 2023. That's 2.5 years at that point, a little bit more than that. I mean, Blundell is a good established player. He's an excellent golfsman. He hasn't been batting that well. He's had a few good innings, but he hasn't been a consistent performer for the Blackcaps Test team with the bat for 2.5 years. Just hurt his hamstring, out for the rest of this match. Probably not. I guess, if Mitch Hay's coming in, that means he's going to be playing the next match as the wicketkeeper. If Mitch Hay scores some runs,
ruled out. He was
so
just
he has,
ruled out. Yeah.
Was that ruled out for the series, or is that because this is a 3-test series that they say?
Only mentioned or is it just sort of test by test?
Yeah, they often do that for the home ones. It's the same with Mitchell and Santner. It's sort of like you're not taking a squad to another country, so you can just call a guy up at any point. Everyone's just available, so you just take it test by test. Mitch Hay scores some runs over let's say he plays both of the remaining test matches. If he scores a couple of 50s in that time and keeps wicket well, I mean, that might already be that transition at wicketkeeper. That might be all it takes, because Blundell is, even if he was scoring a lot of runs, he's obviously at the end of his career. He's mid-30s. He's probably only got a couple more years left if he sticks around at like full capacity, and he's not been playing at full capacity. So that injury for him, unlucky though it is, whenever it comes around to injuries, it's always, there's always bad luck involved there. But that I can easily envisage a situation where that little hammy tear or whatever it was is the trigger that might be the last thing he does in Test cricket. They could be the trigger for making that wicket keeping switch.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Tom Blundell, he was building an innings when he suffered his hamstring injury. 29 runs off 39 deliveries. He got out soon after, suffering what would later be revealed as a hamstring tear. So you're going to struggle to bat with a torn hammy. So like the first day of the Test summer, he has a start, desperately needing runs, and he tears his hammy. And now a dude averaging almost 50 in first-class batting has an opportunity. And Mitchell Hay was pretty solid for New Zealand A in their first-class series as well. 102 runs at an average of 34 in, I think it was 2 games in Bangladesh, and 148 runs at an average of 74 in South Africa. I don't know if we'll see Tom Blundell play Test cricket again. And that's just the cold, hard reality of Blackcaps cricket in 2025. Is like, we're at a stage where it's like, well, Matt Henry's definitely better than Tim Southee and Neil Wagner, kind of better than Trent Boult. Like, this is the new paradigm of Blackcaps cricket. And if you're not performing and you have a bit of luck go against you, not only will you lose your spot, but I don't know if you'll get your spot back. I was thinking, like, how did BJ Watling finish his Test career? So he averaged, like, the first 3 seasons. I don't know if he was the wicketkeeper in these seasons. He didn't play a lot of Tests, but then he finds a regular spot. These are his averages before the last few years: 39.7, 33.5. 48.7, 42.6, 31.1, 35.5, 55.9. 2020, that drops to 21.4. 2021, that drops to 8. Then Tom Blundell comes in. Tom Blundell does awesome, but as you're saying, his form drops away. I wonder if we're in a similar transition period for the Blackcaps wicket-keeping duties in Test cricket right now. One other thing I was thinking about, obviously the Test is ongoing, so we can't go too deep into what's happened or what will happen. But Michael Bracewell's in this first 11, and I think he's the third best player in this role for Tests in New Zealand. Mitchell Santner's first, Glenn Phillips is second, Michael Bracewell's third. So if you're wondering about the New Zealand spinner position, because if you've got the seamers that we have right now, you're not selecting a specialist spinner. Because you can have 4 really good seamers and then Santner, Phillips or Bracewell with a bit of Ravindra. Unless it's a sizzling spinny deck, well, even then you might play Santner and Phillips. I don't think we're going to see a specialist spinner for Blackcaps Test cricket in New Zealand anytime soon. But you could think, oh, Bracewell, he's in the team. That's good stuff for him. It's yeah, he's the third best dude. By my opinion, as far as spin bowling and batting, but also statistically. He's the only dude averaging over 34 of these 3 in Test spinning, and he's the only dude averaging over 38 for first class spinning. He's averaging over 40 in both. So just keep that in mind. I don't think Michael Bracewell is going to be in this position very often moving forward, which is similar to Tommy Blundell, which I think is highlighting a interesting phase for Blackcaps Test cricket. Do you have any other quick thoughts on what we've explored there?
Well, do you see any other spots? I feel like it's maybe the point before about the openers that could be something if Conway doesn't score runs in this series and Will Young doesn't seem to want to. Well, he clearly seems to want to score some runs, but he just doesn't seem to be doing it. Both of those two taking superb catches and dropping other much easier chances on day one, which is strange. So maybe the opening spot, but I don't know. You don't get a lot of change. It's not like you get 3 or 4 spots in the first 11 up for grabs in 1 year, and Blackcaps Test cricket probably in any cohesive functional Test cricket team. Obviously the bowlers get rotated a little bit, but it seems like everything else is very much set, right? There's not there might be a bit of a we've just detailed how we might be in for a change at wicketkeeper. But I don't really see is the team otherwise seems very settled, very structured, very good in all of those spots. Even if a couple of guys, maybe Tom Latham, for example, not playing at full capacity, he's currently the captain. He's not going to get dropped. He's going to be given room to try play himself out of that, and hopefully he will do that. I don't know, today. But the rest of the team seems pretty settled, right? We got a good stock of bowlers. Maybe there might be room for someone else to come in, but I think we've just had that. That was over the previous 12 months. We've had Zach Folks, Nathan Smith, Jacob Duffy, Matt Fisher, all getting Test debuts. That was that process. There's not necessarily, it might be a few more years before the next bunch of guys might get a little wave like that. I don't know. It seems like a very settled team at the very start of a World Test Championship.
It is.
That's what we want.
You're asking me about Devon Conway and Will Young. We'll see what they can do today. So I don't.
Yep.
It depends on who scores runs. That's the thing, and they are batting, so we can't really talk too much about that today. But we do have Plunket Shield starting on Friday. Auckland hosting Wellington. Auckland are top of the table. Wellington 0-2. I will say Tim Robinson is the leading run scorer for Wellington in both competitions, Ford Trophy and Plunket Shield. ND versus Otago. ND 5th, Otago 2nd. CD hosting Canterbury. They're both mid-table. The ND game is in Hamilton. CD game is in Napier. We said it in the audio podcast on Tuesday that didn't make the video, but big time for spin bowling in the Plunket Shield. And this is why the Blackcaps still need spinners in their test teams. And it's just good that those spinners, Santner and Phillips especially, are really good batters, because 6 bowlers have taken 8 wickets in Plunket Shield. 4 of them are spinners: Gulati, Phillips, Sodhi, and Tim Pringle. We've also got Josh Brown, ND seamer, Angus McKenzie, a part of the 8-wicket crew. Jock McKenzie, he's doing well. Josh Clarkson's averaging 22 with the ball in Plunket Shield after a great start to the Ford Trophy. And I still really like the skill set of Luke Georgeson, but we need to see it put together a wee bit more. But if you're looking for a deep cut, Luke Georgeson's a very, very good cricketer on the rise. Henry Cooper scored a double century for ND in the latest round. Matt Boyle's second for runs, so this leading Super Smash run scorer from last summer is now second in Plunket Shield runs. Schmullian, Jacob Cummings, a young opener to watch out for. He's 4th for runs. And then we got Robinson, Nichols, Lachlan Stackpole, very aggressive lefty in the middle order for Auckland. Nick Kelly, Gareth Severin are the other dudes with 200 plus runs. All of these dudes are averaging over 50. Best young batters in this group: Matt Boyle, Jacob Cummings, Tim Robinson, Lachlan Stackpole, and Gareth Severin. As I said, Bevan Jacobs is pretty good as well. He's averaging 62 with 250s in 3 innings. And Mitchell Hay, he's just got 154 runs and averages 77 in the Plunket Shield. So it's not a bad foundation
Blackcaps
to get yourself into the Blackcaps. I think we might have another round of HBJ Shield coming our way this weekend as well. And I did mention the Kate Anderson, Caitlin Gurry. Oh, I don't think we have HBJ Shield. No, not this weekend. Next weekend. But I did mention the Kate Anderson, Caitlin Gurry duo. Kate Anderson has the 5th most centuries for Canterbury. Caitlin Gurry has the 2nd most centuries for ND. Gurry has a list day batting average of 36.8. Anderson has a list day batting average of 34. Anderson has the most runs and the highest strike rate in the HBJ Shield this season. Both of them would make the White Ferns better straight away, I reckon. They might not score heaps of runs, but they'll just be reliable, mature players who can bat around the other internationals. I don't think either of them are going to be selected. Emma McLeod has been selected for the White Ferns last summer, and she is a really good batter. She did hit a century in the latest round of HBJ Shield. I personally think for winning White Ferns cricket, they do need a bit more experience. But McLeod is part of a young batting group for CD who are doing pretty well. They're all 25 years or younger. This is their top 4. Georgia Atkinson, Emma McLeod, Kate Pedersen, and Flora Devonshire. They've also got Kate Gaging, 24-year-old wicketkeeper. She is one of their better batters as well. So I'm really enjoying that young batting group for CD. And then there's also a lot of ND woman stuff that I'm enjoying. Caitlin Gurry, for example. We got the 2 seamers, Lucy Boucher and Kaylee Knight. Both look a little bit quicker, a little bit sharper, less in swing than a lot of other seamers around Aotearoa. And Holly Top is one of the most impressive players to start this season as a wicketkeeper batter for ND. Her and Kate Gaging are the 2 emerging wicketkeepers to watch out for. So a lot of HBJ Shield notes, nuggets, and wrinkles in the latest yarn on our website, thenichecache.com. Same with the latest round of Plunket Shield. All the stats, figures, and bits and bobs are part of those roundups. So make sure you're tapped in with those. And we will be following the domestic cricket very closely. as always, and a bit of Blackcaps as well. Got to watch the old Blackcaps. Let's do a bit of Derby. I think we went a bit crazy with Derby stuff. The Aotearoa A-Legue Derby. Lots of Derby chat on the audio podcast on Tuesday. I have 3 key zones that I'm going to be watching out for. The first is obviously Eze versus Cosgrove. Goes without saying. I do want to be a bit more chill and a little less haterade towards Mr. Cosgrove, so I'm curious how this matchup plays out. Big fan of Eze. 2 strikers, 2 pure strikers. One makes the most of his size, the other doesn't. And I'm just curious to see how that battle plays out. Also very curious to see which of these players will... Because I think these players have a chance to be the best players on the field. And I'm curious to see... not necessarily who is the best player on the field, but which of these players is more of the better player on the field. Obviously, if we're talking best players on the field, one's got to be Franny de Vries, left back for Auckland FC. The other, Alex Rufer. I think Rufer's going to be very important for the Wellington Phoenix, breaking up the Auckland FC attacking movements and shifting the footy quickly and efficiently for Wellington Phoenix. It should be Francis de Vries as the best player on the field, but I think Rufer, he might have a say, and I'm curious to see what Rufer can do in a big game. And then we've got the older defensive line of Auckland FC versus the younger defensive line of Wellington Phoenix. It is not as pronounced as last season, because I don't know, like last season it was De Vries, Hall, Sakai, and Pyneka. And the Wellington Phoenix sometimes...
with Tommy Smith on the bench.
Tommy Smith on the bench. Phoenix last season, they were rolling out Sheridan, Hughes, and Kelly Hill. Just them at some stages. But now they've got big man Mandraker, and they might have T-Pain back.
I don't think so, but I don't know for sure, because
then it would be even younger with Loke. So that's just
or
a very
Sheridan, yeah.
Either way, very interesting matchup. The older Auckland FC defense, which is still mature if you've got Callan Elliott there. Like he's not, how old is he? He's not 21 or 22.
24, 25. Same under 20s wave as Kakache and Bell and those guys. So he's that age.
So he is a little bit older than the Phoenix defenders, but you got 2 different styles of defense, first and foremost, with formation and how they operate. But then you've still got the experience of Auckland FC, even the Aussie Girkwood Rice. He's a bit older, right? Like him and Hall.
No, he's not that much older. He's 22, 23, something like that.
You could do a quick Google search.
So like maybe Isaac, he's about the same age as Isaac Hughes, but older slightly than maybe Kelly Hill or whoever.
Surely he's not the same age as Hughes.
That's about what Hughes is. I've got the wrong spreadsheets open, but give me 30 seconds. I'll find out.
That's you could have done it already. But there's just 2 different methods of defense for both teams, and it's kind of like the way these 2 teams are built. Auckland FC is more mature. That is a foundation of who they are and what they do with the youngsters coming through. Whereas Wellington Phoenix, they're a younger group filled with young players. But they've got like Auckland FC, it feels like, again, I'm kind of talking about my backside, so it feels like Auckland FC are an older group with some young players coming through. Whereas Wellington Phoenix are a younger group with some older players sprinkled in.
Yeah, and like you say, that has been, I think in both cases, arguably, that has been, they're closer to meeting in the middle of those 2 dynamics than they were when they met last season, because that was probably a weakness of the Wellington Phoenix, is the way in which they, too many youngsters in key roles for them last season. They have made a point of trying to get a few more guys of that, like Mandraker, James, kind of mold to fill things out. believe it or not, Jake Gerwood-Reich
Who's that?
is 2 months younger than Isaac Hughes. They're
There
both
you go.
21, both born in 2004. So basically the same age.
But he is
But,
listed
Lucas
as
Kelly-Hield is a year younger than that.
he is listed as a midfielder, so he's technically not part of the Auckland FC defense.
Yeah, well, he was a midfielder when he played for Sydney, I think, even when he went to MLS, which didn't stick, although he's only on loan. He's supposedly gone back there. Yeah, he was more of a defensive midfielder who can play centre back, but Auckland FC brought him in to play centre back. Of course, he has a Sydney FC connection with Corica from back when, which is why that comes about. But as I said on Tuesday, if it's up to me, and I suspect this might actually, after considering how pissed off Steve Corica seems to be after 2 very close results recently, seems pretty furious about the performances he's seen. I would be surprised if there aren't at least a couple of changes, and the obvious ones I would go for would be starting Nando Paeneka ahead of Gerwood-Reich, so someone who's 5 years older and has played in this derby a few times, and just getting an extra Kiwi guy in there, seeing how much they like to be playing up that rivalry. That it seems like something to do. But then the other one, as I also said on Tuesday, is let's see Logan Rogerson back in there from the start, give them an extra goal threat, which is something they're missing so much. Really reliant on Jesse Randall at the moment. If Guillermo Maia is still out injured, or I don't even know what the deal with why he missed the last game was, but if he's not there, maybe you put Randall back in the middle, you put Logan Rogerson on the left wing, then you can keep Lachlan Brook there. Frankly, I would start Rogerson ahead of Lachlan Brook, even if that's, even if Guillermo Maia is there, and you can still keep Randall on the left wing. That would be a change I would like to see. So I'm curious about what those starting lineups are going to look like. But yeah, the striker duel is one I'm also paying close attention to. When you asked me the other day about who the best player across these two teams is, and we decided just to leave it with Francis, you said Francis de Vries, and I said, yeah, I'm happy with that because I can't think of an obvious one. As I was editing that afterwards, I was like, oh wait, Hiroki Sakai he is the best player across the two teams, but is out injured, so out of sight, out of mind, and he won't be back for this game. So I think that also does leave a big game for Callan Elliott, not just because he was excellent in the first derby, not just because he's settling into a nice starting role while Sakai's been out and has continued to show good form. But then there's also the All Whites right back's reserve spot, which is up for grabs, which he is very much competing for. This is a big spotlight game. He got a lot of the boost from how well he played in the first one. If he plays well in this one, that's going to get a lot of people mentioning his name continually. I don't think he's in the top choice all-white squad as it stands, but I think he has the ability to get in there. But the thing with him is that Sakai will be back at some point. So he doesn't have time to ease his way into this little window he's got. He has to be good every week to kind of demand continued selections in whatever way, shape, or form that might be. I mean, it might even be Sakai comes back and Elliott starts playing as a winger like he used to in his youth days. He was a right winger. He wasn't a defender. He's been converted into a fullback. Big game for him for that reason, because he just doesn't have a lot of time to waste if he wants to go to the World Cup.
I think Callan Elliott is good. I don't know if he's that good.
All-white squad good or dominating the derby good?
Both.
I guess you got to be both to be either. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's why I'm saying he's touch and go. He's on the fringes, and if it was a different position, I don't think an A-League player would have a chance to push. I don't think another midfielder is coming through and making the all-white squad within 6 months for a World Cup. But at right back, where our starting player is Tim Payne, who is one of the best A-League players, but still an A-League player. And your backup right now is Bill Tuiloma, who has barely played for 2 years and doesn't currently have a club. There's more of an open runway there in that position than you would normally get. So it's a bit like Blackcaps selections, where it's like someone could be playing a lot better than Callan Elliott in the A-League and not even get close to making the all-white squad because there are better players in that position. But this one position, this wicket-keeping spot right now, might be a little bit, and we're only talking about backup behind Tim Payne as well, but it might just be there's a window there for him.
Football Ferns seem to finish their Aussie series a little bit more positive than it was on Tuesday. They lost 2-0 in the second game, but they apparently it was a better performance, and you seemed a little bit happier with that effort. How are you assessing the Football Ferns? Take out the Aussie stuff and just like how are we assessing the Football Ferns where they're at? But also take out the there's some peripheral stuff that you've talked a lot about that is relevant. Weird selections, no connection to the local community because they don't play in New Zealand. They're only playing really good teams in the world, which makes it hard to generate some buzz if you're just losing 7-0 across 2 games. And that is like they play USA, they get a similar result. Like they're playing really good
against USA. Yep.
They're playing really good teams, and it's probably useful in helping them get better as international footballers, but it's not necessarily going to give them like good vibes and scoring goals and having a bit of fun, as we've seen in patches with the All Whites. And there is like Gucci Mane he's done some goofy stuff, he's done some cool stuff. I don't know where the Football Ferns are at post Klimkova. It seems very messy, seems very confusing. There's some positive signs, there's some negative signs. What is your assessment of the Football Ferns as a group, as an entity right now?
Ferns this year have been confusing more than they have been messy. I think the messiness is a lingering thing from, the previous year and the previous year and the previous year and the previous year, going back for a while. Multiple coaches, many different situations where there has been messiness. I don't know that Michael Main has added messiness to it other than some of the goofy selections, but I think the goofy selections wouldn't be so goofy if it wasn't that all of those things you listed there are an issue. The fact they don't play home games, the fact that partly because they don't play home games, they don't really seem to have a lot of media accountability or even that much like non-NZ football ticked off access. The tough games meaning lots of losses, all those kind of things. I think when you get all of those, well, those 3 big things in particular, the goofy selections, the games where we never have a chance of winning, and the lack of home games / accessibility, it's when all 3 of those things are happening at once and it starts to feel like a little bit of a whirlpool. But my hope is that the second game, the Tuesday night game against Australia, which we only lost 2-0 and which was only 1-0 until about 20 minutes to go, my hope is that that is a turning point. And I think there's reasons to think maybe that it might be, because the most significant one of those being that having seen in all previous 8 games this year, since Michael Main sort of resumed his interim job and then got the full-time job, because he was interim while Klimkova was on gardening leave during Olympics, whatever. And then they had that like little spell where they decided to just not play games in October and November. And now we're still working through a year and a half out from a World Cup, something like that. We're still working through our start of a cycle things. Or maybe you could have used those windows to some use. But having played the same formation in all of those games, he changed it after the first loss in Australia, which seemed to be a concession, which was needed. It was we've gone from the 3 centre backs things with the wing backs, 2 strikers up front. Well, maybe you don't need 2 strikers up front if you don't really have one striker who's demanding selection at the moment. Whereas we have good centre backs, good centre midfielders, some decent-ish wide players. Like, how do you get more of your better players into the team at once? Well, what they did in this one is they went with a back 4 with a holding midfielder in front of them. That was Kate Taylor. So effectively it's your back 5 as it was, but just with Taylor moving like her starting position 10 meters forward or something like that. Like very much playing behind the other midfielders and just shielding the defense. And I thought she did an excellent job of that. It's the same role we saw her playing for the Wellington Phoenix a few years ago. Hasn't really played it in France, but did do it in her most recent game in France, which I thought was interesting, especially that she's done that role again for the Ferns so soon after that. But because they had that, you get like a a very structured kind of 4-1-4-1 shape, which is important because in the first game, Australia was just running straight through us. Wherever they wanted, they would just pass the ball around us, run directly up the middle. Like we couldn't keep up with them. This way of doing it, you have Kate Taylor there shielding the defense, but you also have wingers further up. You have two midfielders, and you can have that sort of like midfield block of 4 players with Millie Clegg running around, or Kelly Brown later on running around up front, like up top in front of them, maybe putting a little bit of pressure on the ball where possible, that kind of thing. Don't let anyone just dribble forward into the midfield. But you have this sort of wall of 4 there with a wall of 4 further back, and then Kate Taylor in between them, sweeping around and picking on wherever the sort of the pressure points are there. And I thought that worked really well for a couple of reasons. The first one is what I said about it just gets more of your better players in good positions. So we have relied massively on Indy Riley to get creativity this year, just her speed, her directness up the wing. Well, if she's gone from being a wing back to a winger, she's starting closer to the goal. She's probably receiving the ball 20 meters further up than she might have otherwise, because she's not having to run back and do all the defending because there is a left back behind her. It was Michaela Foster in this case. So that's putting already probably your best player this year, putting her in a position to be more influential. Arguably put Kate Taylor in a more influential position as well. Another one of our best performers this year. CJ Bott at right back is always going to be an upgrade. And with I think Gabby Rennie playing as a winger as well. That's the best position she could be playing. So there's just a few more instances there where it felt like they were putting the more influential players in the better positions for them to be as influential as they can. But also, other key reason is it stocked up our defense. It meant that we were able to play with better structure and like players behind the ball, the two walls of 4 as the blocks there. We've talked about this plenty of times, like New Zealand football teams, it's no different with the All Whites. It's no different with our youth teams as well, are always going to be underdogs when it gets to the games that they're targeting, the World Cups, FIFA tournaments, kind of thing. Always going to be underdogs, always need to be built upon solid defense. That has to be the starting point. And as much as you want to be like, yeah, but we need to score goals. We don't score enough goals. How can we score more goals? You can't sacrifice that defensive foundation in order to look for better attacking things when the defensive foundation is the strength of your team. It's like we've arguably seen this a bit with Auckland FC over the last year and a half. So you build even if you struggle to score the goals, at least if you know you're not going to concede more than 2 in a game, you don't need to score 4, you just need to score 1 or 2, to be able to get results. So seeing the Football Ferns get back to that type of identity, I think, was quite important. And hopefully that will be something they stick with moving forward, because I think that just suits them better. But I also like the fact that this was a bit of a compromise from Michael Main and his coaching staff. And I think a compromise needed to be made, because I like that they came in and was sort of like, yeah, we're going to do things a bit different. We're going to change the way things have been done before, but you can't just go from one thing to the opposite. You sort of need to find a middle ground which suits everyone. And you have a bunch of players who are used to playing a certain way, and then used to playing a certain way because that's what they're good at. That's what, like, we happen to have a lot of good centre backs and defensive midfielders. That is a strength of our team. You need to lean upon that to be the strength. Like, that needs to be reflected in the identity of the side. Your best players are your best players. It's like the Blackcaps aren't going to come in with 3 spinners in a home test match because our seam bowlers are so good and take so many wickets in these types of conditions. That is what you build your team around. So I think there was I don't know, I'm not going to call it like a humbling experience or whatever from the coach to see that change, but I think it was at least another one of those meeting in the middle type things. So I was encouraged by that. I was encouraged by the performance, but I was also encouraged by the approach. And hopefully now when we come back next year in a few months, whenever they next play, I think it's World Cup qualifiers. So we're going to go from the complete opposite, playing against Australia and USA and getting thrashed, to playing against Oceania teams and thrashing them. But importantly, because we got to qualify for a World Cup, come back for those games, and hopefully we've got more of a base to build from. That's all good stuff. In the newsletter today, I've highlighted a couple players who I thought had really breakthrough years for the Ferns. So Maya Hahn, Kelly Brown, Emma Pleinenberg, they're the three I listed in that order. Check out our newsletter if you want the explanations. But yeah, I will write about the Football Ferns in greater detail as well today or tomorrow, or however long that takes. But I am much more encouraged at this point than I thought I was going to be after that first game, where it just felt like they'd gone as far down this way of thinking as they could. Now they've maybe found a compromise that works a little bit better, and as I say, I find that encouraging, and I think they're in a. I wasn't expecting to be talking positively about that, and we need to see that we just see that sort of continue, but good start, like a good approach, good adjustments, I think, from the Ferns in that second game.
Auckland United have won 3 National League championships in a row. On the women's side, they won the final last weekend, and the men's competition keeps moving and grooving, must be coming to an end fairly soon. The men's competition, Miramar, Wellington have 6 wins. Then we go Auckland City, Western Springs, Auckland FC. Well, sorry, Auckland City and Western Springs have 5 wins each as the top 4 teams on the men's side. But let's start with Auckland United, National League dynasty. They should be in that category. I don't think we've got a men's dynasty right now, although Auckland City did win something last time.
Yeah, they are defending champs.
Yeah, so they're still doing their dynastic football stuff. But there's no Auckland City women's team. Instead, Auckland United, it does get a bit confusing. Auckland United, Auckland City, yes. Auckland FC, let alone other teams from Auckland. But Auckland United, dynasty in the women's competition. What caught your eye from their campaign this season? And obviously, I'm only interested in the best emerging players that we need to learn about, because the National League always produces lots of overseas movement. And there was a dude recently, I think he left Christchurch United, Jago.
Yeah, Jago Godden. Yeah.
Just another dude, I've got no idea who he is. Was playing National League, now he's overseas. This is a theme for all players in National League. So how do you assess Auckland United's season? And then are there any notable players we need to watch out for progressing beyond the National League?
I think the most interesting thing about their season was the fact that, yes, they won a 3rd championship in a row. Like that's the three-peat. That matches what Christchurch United did at their best. They won 3 in a row, 2018, 19, 20. I think Christchurch also won like 5 out of 6 or something like that. So Auckland's got a little way to go to match the full capacity of the Canterbury, the Canterbury United dynasty of old, but they are certainly undeniably the dynasty of right now. They have won. They didn't win the regional league. They got pipped at the post by West Coast Rangers in that. They won that last year. They won the Oceania Champions League the last 2 years in a row. They've won the Kate Shepherd Cup 2 years in a row. They've won the National League 3 years in a row. They actually won, I think, the Kate Shepherd Cup 3 of the last 4 years as well, but that was slightly before the sort of Ben Bate coaching era. The last 3 years is when the dynasty counts. That's the framework. So they've won 7 of the last 8 major trophies that they've competed for, not counting the FIFA Club Cup thingy-majiggy that they went off to, which obviously they were never going to win anything there. But did put in an excellent performance to only lose 1-0 to the champions of Asia, which is crazy stuff, a team that beat Melbourne City in the grand final of that tournament. So they do win everything, but nothing felt as easy for them this year as it did at other times. They sort of threw a spanner in the, not a spanner in the works. They sort of threw a little bit of I don't know, like an illusion, a Harry Houdini illusion stuff at the start when they won 8-0 against Canterbury, won 10-0 against Central, 4-1 against Phoenix. It's like, oh, well, they're just going to thrash everyone every single week. Well, they didn't win by more than 3 goals in any of their remaining games. Barely beat West Coast Rangers 1-0 with a sort of controversial penalty, 15 minutes to go. They drew with Eastern Suburbs. In fact, they only scored in like the 88th minute to equalize in that game. So they nearly lost as a midweek game away to Eastern Suburbs. Beat Petone 3-0, fine, but Western Springs put up a fight, 2-0 in that one. Southern United put up a fight, 2-0 in that one. Neither of those games they scored, like both of those games were 0 at halftime. And then they lost to Wellington United, admittedly with a rotated team, but there's a good Wellington United team that might well have beaten them anyway. Funny thing about Wellington United, they missed out in the grand final, but they actually beat both of the teams who were in the grand final. So unlucky for them. And then in the grand final, it was only 1-0 thanks to just sort of a bit of a goal out of nothing against Eastern Suburbs late in the first half. So they had that championship tendency to win close games. They also had a lot of close games. Like they went out there thrashing people. It really felt like, and I don't think they're any worse than they've been in previous years. Maybe just missing like a consistent goal scorer and striker, which Ava Collins looked like she would be at the start, but then she only played the first couple of games. And I think that's an encouraging thing for the league because I don't see that as Auckland United dropping off. I see that as other teams catching up. I think West Coast Rangers, having dueled them out for the last couple of years in the regional league, really stepped up to the plate. Their Eastern Suburbs as well, particularly after they got Rebecca Van Dort back from playing in Australia over the last couple of years. Once they got her in there, big deal from them. Like they were deserving grand finalists. Wellington United, couple of great additions to them on top of what was a perfect season for them in the Central League. They pushed them close. They beat Auckland United, only team to beat Auckland United in the last couple of years of National League stuff. So great stuff for the league there on a whole, I think. But then at the end of that, it's the team who knows how to win championships that ends up winning the championship. And the player who scored the winner in the grand final is the young player to look out for, which is Zoe Benson, who plays. She's been a regular in a few in all the age grade squads. I think she's been to 2 under-20 World Cups now. Went to an under-17 World Cup. No, she's going to go to 2 under-20 World Cups because the second one is next year. She went to last year's one. She's part of the 19s that qualified for this year. So she's 19 years old right now. Previously, one of the leading assist makers, going back to when she was 17, last 2 years in a row, playing for Eastern Suburbs. So a little bit of a Logan Rogerson scoring a hat-trick against the Wellington Phoenix type situation where you got Zoe Benson, ex-Eastern Suburbs player who scores the winner against Eastern Suburbs in the National League Grand Final there. But yeah, creative winger / attacking midfielder, very good finisher, superb passer, good close control. Not particularly fast, but very good with her feet. Sort of like a female Elijah Just type player. Think of it in that kind of description. And yeah, she played once she got back from the under-19. She played pretty much every week for them. And even when they were struggling in some of those games, I thought she was their most potent attacker in the West Coast Rangers game and probably in the first Eastern Suburbs game as well. Like that's a 19-year-old creative midfielder / winger who she played on the left wing pretty much in all these games, who they were able to rely upon week after week after week in a team that has a lot of veterans in there. I think people think of Annalie Longo there because they've seen Football Ferns squads with her name there saying Auckland United. She barely played for Auckland United. Like I think she started one game. She came off the bench in that Wuhan trip and came off the bench in one other game, like 2 National League appearances. She wasn't really effective there. But like Chloe Knott, Yuma Harashima, Jess Philpott, Hannah Mitchell, like Talisha Green, very experienced team that have been around throughout the three-peat kind of seasons. Here's Zoe Benson in her first year with the club being one of their most influential strikers. And if you want another one, Chiara Bocelli as well, who's maybe a year older and played when she was like 18, went over to Italy. She has Italian heritage, so it was get the passport, go over and use some connections. Spent 3 years with Sampdoria, or 2.5 years with Sampdoria. 1 year she was on loan in the second tier. Second year she comes back, played like 8 games in Serie A for them as well. So has a bit of Flying Kiwis representation there, but has come back because weirdly her Sampdoria team, not only did they get relegated, but then once they got relegated, they decided they couldn't afford to have a women's team anymore. So they withdrew and re-entered it in an amateur league. So she left, came back, played for Auckland United, and probably seen her more as a winger in age grade teams, but played as an attacking midfielder here and really good. Great from set pieces, scored an incredible free kick. I think it was against Petone. Good long shot, scored a few goals, set some up. Good technical player. Good like defensive hustle from her in those sort of high pressing situations too. So Zoe Benson is your emerging star to watch for, but also Chiara Bocelli gets to be number 2 on that list too.
It's also a derby weekend in the Men's National League, Wellington Olympic versus Miramar on Saturday. We've got Western Suburbs versus Phoenix Reserves. I think that's another Wellington. You got two Wellington derbies, then you got Birkenhead versus Western Springs in Auckland, and Auckland FC versus Auckland United FC. Of course, they all need to tell us that they are football clubs and they're FCs and all that stuff. Like, we get it. You play football. We don't need to go too deep into the men's competition after a women's grand final dynasty, but we do have a couple of derbies in National League to go with the A-League derby. Is there a big idea for you in the men's competition this weekend?
Well, this is the last weekend of the regular season, so it's all about who finishes in the top 2 right now. It's like, and that's why that Wellington Olympic versus Miramar Rangers game that's a big derby anyway. You're playing that in the last game of the season where the winner gets to host the grand final and the loser might not qualify at all. When those are the first and second place teams heading into this round, that's as big as it gets. Like, the only time that's been bigger is if it was the grand final, which did happen once in the South Central Series, the COVID season where they didn't have the Auckland clubs. Those two did play in the grand final there. Kind of think Olympic will pip them there, but Miramar Rangers have had a good solid season and they deserve to be where they are at the top. They've got a strong defense and they've got guys, Martin Bueno up there scoring, his golden boot leader. He's banging goals away. Owen Smith's been awesome for them, just whipping in crazy crosses, good dribbler, attacking player. Andy Bevan's hanging around, Nico Bobadilla, Jordan Lamb on the left wing, running at defenders. They got a really good organized team. And yeah, it's not quite all or nothing, because it's possible Auckland City, Western Springs might just not win their games, and then these two still both progress to the final and play each other again next week. But there's a lot on the line there between how that's going to go. And then you've Auckland City, if they win their game against Coastal Spirit, someone's dropping points between Olympic and Rangers. So if Auckland City beat Coastal Spirit, they go through to the grand final. If they don't, that might open the door for Western Springs if they can beat Birkenhead, especially if they can beat Birkenhead by a lot, which I don't know. I mean, even if you score a bunch of goals against Birkenhead, I kind of feel like Birkenhead will score a bunch themselves. I don't know that you beat that team 5-0. I think you beat that team 5-3 kind of thing. But we'll see, because that game is on Sunday, so they will know, Western Springs will know by the time that game kicks off whether they have a chance of making the final and exactly what they'll need to do in terms of goal difference if there is a chance. And there might not be if Auckland City win. If there's a winner in the Olympic Rangers game, I think even a draw might make it tricky for. Well, that is okay. Basically, I think Western Springs are out, but there is a mathematical chance, and they'll know when that game kicks off. So yeah, big ramifications, but it's those Saturday 2 p.m. kickoffs right before the derby. 2 p.m. between those ones. Choose your fighters, Olympic versus Rangers or Auckland City versus Coastal Spirit. And then you've got Auckland FC versus Wellington Phoenix at a 5 p.m. kickoff. That is a good afternoon of Kiwi football.
The Breakers gave us a good evening for New Zealand basketball after a couple good evenings and close losses to Australia. But the Breakers, apparently they've won back-to-back games for the first time in almost a decade.
Feels like it.
Yes. They had a win over the Sydney Kings. That's an important win because Sydney Kings are mid-table as well, 7-7. Breakers are now 6-10. What did you make of that performance? It was mate Brockington's doing. He's getting a bit better. PJC's getting a bit better. Baker, to me, Rob Baker is the basketball equivalent. I don't know, maybe Brockington or Baker. They're the basketball equivalents to me of Sam Cosgrove. We're seeing less Carlin Davison, but we're seeing a bit more, I think, of Ruben Tarangi playing well. Rob Lowe contributed well in this win over the Sydney Kings as well. How are you feeling about the Breakers? Back-to-back wins. they're holding steady, but they're still in the lower half of the Australian NBL ladder.
Well, what did you say? They're 6-10 now
Yes.
overall. Is that right? So they started 0-4, which means they're 6-6 since then. So they have sort of settled into being a win one, lose one, win one, lose one type team. Finally won 2 in a row for the first time. I think the official thing is 30. I can't remember. It might 36 games, something like that, since they last won back-to-back games. It's been a little bit over a year. I think it was like November 2024 when that last happened. So then that sort of 10-game stint at the start, very, very start of last season when Coach Copt was winning some games. It's the only other time it had this type of. Is this the first time since then that he's been able to actually get consecutive performances on the board like that? And there was some fourth quarter offense in this one. I haven't watched the game back fully. I'm going to do that, and then probably I'll watch that while I'm watching some cricket this afternoon, and maybe get a few words in the newsletter by then if there's time. So I'm working on highlights here because I couldn't watch it live, but they scored points in the fourth quarter in a close game. That just has not, that's been the thing up until this point. Every time they had won, they'd had a double-digit lead after 3 quarters. Every time they hadn't had a double-digit lead after 3 quarters, they had lost. Goes without saying, you either win or you lose. This was not that. This was the thing that we've been waiting all season to see, which is performing when the game is on the line, getting some buckets at important times. And it was like, I mean, the clincher at the end there with, I think they were 1 point up, and PJC hits to 3 to go to 4 points up, which kind of like sealed the deal there inside the last minute or whatever it was. He's shooting from like 2 meters back from the 3-point line. And I've seen that being like, I don't know if that's the best coaching design to end up with that shot where you've got like a subpar 3-point shooter who's going to shoot from 2 meters behind where the line is. But he nailed it, and I think he shot like 6 of 8 in that game from 3. So he did have a superb shooting night. And I guess when you're the hot hand, it doesn't matter what you did in all the other games. It just matters if you're did you make your last shot, or are you gonna make your next shot? He did make this one, and yeah, that's more the PJC they need to see. The amount of times that it's just like their fourth quarter offense comes down to Parker Jackson Cartwright ball screen, runs to the hoop, blocked at the rim because there's 3 guys condensing because they all know that this is exactly what he wants to do. Like, he's got to nail some jump shots. He needs some guys around him to nail some jump shots. They just need to vary that offense a bit more, and it seems like they did that against Sydney. It wasn't under strength Sydney. I know Adela Vadova didn't play. I think they had someone else, another key player injured. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, nice stuff. It's the Breakers showing us what we were waiting to see from them. The thing which, until they won a close fourth quarter game, we couldn't really expect to see them go to another level and become a team that can do anything better than win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But now that they've shown that they're capable of that, I guess a door has opened for them, and we'll see if they can go through it.
They've signed Ty Webster as well.
That's it.
And yeah. I like Isaiah Leafa, but Ty Webster is better than
It's
Leafa.
An upgrade. It's an upgrade.
So you'll have, like, you're talking about the PJC kind of tactics and game plans. Well, Ty Webster's going to be a factor there as well, because he is a kind of proven performer. He's a mature basketball player, international for Aotearoa, played around the world for a long time. He's a bigger body than PJC, so I'm interested to see what Ty Webster can add to the Breakers. And I love all these kind of depth players for the Breakers, but Ty Webster's an upgrade on Leafa, so that in a weird way that will make the Breakers a better team moving forward.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the bloody. Speaking of apps and websites, the A-League one has pissed both of us off many times. The NBL one is annoying too. It's like they just don't put the stuff that you want in the place where you want to find it.
The A-League website hasn't pissed me off.
No?
The NBL website is ridiculous.
The NBL one,
the A-League one.
I do. The A-League one used to have amazing stats on there where you could go through and find all like passing maps and things like this, and then they just got rid of it when they revamped it. Um, dumb stuff.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that like at least the website makes sense. The NBL website doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm arguing the A-League one doesn't make a whole lot of sense either because it's an A-League website that seems to just want to be an Australian football website, but it's the NBL one is worse. So Ty Webster didn't play last night. Yeah, Colin Davison, you got about 6 minutes there. I wonder if that might be, coming back from Tall Blacks duty might be an element of that. Taylor Britt didn't play much, but he doesn't normally play that much anyway. Because if Sean Bairstow is going to take Colin Davison's minutes, I don't think I am cool with that, but I suspect that might be a very short turnaround. They played twice against Australia. Who else was in the Tall Blacks in that? Sam Menenga, but Sam Menenga's the man, so you kind of don't have a choice there. Tarangi wasn't in the Tall Black squad. Loy wasn't in the Tall Black squad. So yeah, it's only Menenga who really backed up and played his normal amount of minutes from there. Leafa was in the Tall Black squad, and that's where he got injured, hurt his foot, out for the season. That's why Ty Webster comes in. And yeah, I mean, I've said a few times, I think Leafa has had a tidy season coming off the bench. He's been very good defensively. They've often been a better team when he's been out there. But it's a similar thing to like that until they show some fourth quarter success. You can't get to the next level. Leafa was just stuck. He couldn't get to the next level until he found some confidence again in his jump shot, and I would have preferred that to happen. But it hasn't. He's out injured. He's not going to get that chance. But the fact they've been able to bring Ty Webster in, he's an inconsistent jump shooter as well, but he is a ball handler, and I think that probably helps the team out in the overall a bit more in the aggregate, because that's an easy way to fix some of your fourth quarter over reliance on Parker Jackson Cartwright, is to actually have another player on the roster who can orchestrate some stuff with the ball in his hand, carrying it forward in half court offense situations as Ty Webster. That's what he does. That's what he's hopefully going to bring to this team, and that is as good of a signing as they could find, considering that obviously it had to be a Kiwi in for a Kiwi because they've got no import spots available. It was a New Zealander who got injured. I don't know that you're going to find too many Australians I don't know if the Breakers would have bothered to look at Australians anyway if they saw that Ty Webster was available. He's coming from playing at a very high level in France last season. So, that's a great signing, and hopefully that also helps them with that. Let's get to the next level now that they've been able to win back-to-back games.
Just going back to the Tall Blacks series against Australia, who was your favourite player for the Tall Blacks? Whether it was the best player or someone had a breakout performance representing Aotearoa, was there a standout for you from those two games, both of which were losses, but the Tall Blacks seem to be highly competitive with a good culture, a lot of good stuff happening there. So, yeah, was there a standout player for you from those two losses?
Yeah, and both close losses, and the second one was like a banked buzzer beater to beat them. So that's as close to a win as you're going to get. Good performances on the whole. Yes, there was a standout player, and his name was Sam Menenga. He's also been the standout player for the Breakers. There was a dunk he did on Jack White, which is just absolutely tremendous, where he just like lined him up from almost like around the free throw line, just dunked over the top of him, and then instead of turning around and yelling at cameras or flexing the muscles or showing off or yelling in anyone's face, he just stood there calmly after dunking on the guy and just looked at him, like just no expression on his face. He just looked at him. As White was getting ready to, take the inbounds.
Next job.
Yeah, exactly. It was so much cooler than the celebrating in a guy's face after you dunk on him. Like dunking on him is for celebrating in his face. You don't need to don't need to kick a man when he's down. But it was almost like more more belittling just to be like, yeah, that's what I do. It's like no emotion. It's just the postman doesn't celebrate when he delivers the mail, But Menenga was tremendous throughout those games. I think he top scored for New Zealand in both of them. And that's fascinating, not only because it's coming off the back of, well, not in the back, in the middle of a fantastic season for the Breakers, but also because this was a Tall Blacks side, which, Ty Webster wasn't in this Tall Blacks team. They didn't really have a point guard except for Taylor Britt. but they had a whole bunch of big men. And those big men are all competing for minutes. So no one was playing like 30 plus or anything like that. You get a good rotation going. But of a squad that had Yanni Wetzel in it, that had Toy Smith Milner, that had Terrell Harrison, that had Sam Menenga, it's Sam Menenga who outplays all those other guys and sort of is the influential one. We got a lot of like Menenga at power forward alongside bigger guys because of course you try to get as many of them on the field as you can at one time. But yeah, Menenga just tremendous and continuing to be like just demanding all the opportunities that he gets and then taking and like making the most of them whenever they come around. He's just, it was what we see from him at the Breakers. It was more of that for the Tall Blacks, even in a squad that had a whole lot of depth in his position where it wasn't going to be a given. He had to earn everything he got there, and he certainly did.
Beauty. We'll wrap it up there for this messy, goofy podcast on a Thursday. Football Fern styles.
Yeah.
But we're on the up, like the Football Ferns.
Maybe. That remains to be seen, like the Football Ferns.
Righto. Enjoy the Aotearoa sporting action. We appreciate you being here with us, and we will be back doing what we love, chopping up all sorts of different Aotearoa sports stuff for you. Big up to you. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Cheer.